All right, welcome everyone to the International Artistic Development. And part of International Artistic Development is the Music Mafia. And this is the first podcast from Music Mafia. My guests today are Tim Music, who also goes by the name Tim Nkosi Kumalo. And he's got a company that he normally does voice notes on and choral arrangements. And he's also a music teacher and he's taught creative arts as well. So he's covered quite a few things within uh, teaching. And I think one of the main reasons I also invited Tim is last year he was busy with and it's actually one of our topics for today, which is the philosophy. So the philosophy of teaching, I've written it as the philosophy of teaching to make it a bit broader, but obviously his was philosophy of music teaching. Then our other guest is Cloudex, who has a broad number of skills, and he's become a member recently of the Music Mafia as well, which focuses on streamers. And CloudX, you can normally catch him on his streams. He normally does quite a few different things. Sometimes you'll see him gaming and having fun, and then sometimes you'll catch him doing some editing of either videos or mixing. And he's also one of the teachers that has come on board to teach guitar at International Artistic Development. And yeah, I mean, I've recently just posted the posters. Both of them have a wide array of things that they can offer, and I'm really happy that they can join us today. So welcome in Tim Music and CloudX722.
Hey, thank you, Matt.
Hey, hey, Matt. Thank you for having us.
All
Mm.
right. Okay, so let me jump straight to the first section here. So our first topic or question essentially is something that I've thought about for quite a while over the past few years, which is what is the role of a teacher and a student? And do you guys want me to kind of go on my thoughts on this before you guys go?
Yeah, Matt,
Yeah,
go,
let's go.
go ahead.
All right. So this is something I feel very close to my heart because I've seen it many times over the years where there's not much of an understanding between what the teacher's job really is and what the student's job really is. There's a lot of students that sign up for lessons with me that over the past, I should say, because now I tend to do like a thorough interview usually if I take on private students. And it's because students sometimes come on board or parents bring students and they think my job is to do everything for them. So I teach them and then all of this stuff, and then at the end of the day they can play, and then they don't realize that as a student, um, well, essentially, my job as the teacher is guidance with how the student is progressing, and a student actually has to go back and practice and so on and so on. So
Mm.
it's kind of my
Mm.
coverage of it.
I
But what do you guys think about it? Who wants to go first on this one?
think, I think I'll go first. It's interesting you bring it
Mhm.
up in that sort of way, like you expect a certain type of commitment from a student that's very different from what a teacher is doing. It's almost like leading and following, and to eventually turn that follower into a leader as well, right? Somebody that knows the skill. So, in my experience with teaching as well, I found that there's a big misunderstanding that you're paying for this teacher to help you learn whatever skill it may be, and that somehow magically, just because you have the teacher, you're gonna end up being better or as good as the person that's teaching you
Mm,
just because you're paying for it. And that's not necessarily the case. More often than not, I find there is a lack of motivation, eventual disinterest, and sometimes even a disdain for the teacher because they fail to grasp something. And like you said, like our role as teachers, we're supposed to help guide them through the process because it is a difficult thing to learn something new. But yeah, that's been
mm,
my like battles with teaching like something new to somebody, whether it be guitar, whether it be a technical skill, or like skills in life even battling with something like depression or whatever. Like people generally don't take the advice well that you have to give, and it's an upward battle, but it's worthwhile. What about you, Tim?
yeah. I'd say it's a bit of a similar thing with me. My years of teaching so far, I'm not speaking as a seasonal teacher. I'm still learning as I go along the way. With my interaction with students, so I've sort of I face a different setting. So this is quite new to me that to face private students. So I'm more like in a classroom setting. So when you to deal with kids in a classroom setting, um, and I've worked on different environments on private schools and on government schools. So government schools was quite sort of a rough experience for me. Um, you get students about like between 30 to 50 students in a classroom, and there's not that much personal attention as opposed to the private school setting where it's just less than that. Or probably like get about like 10 students or 15, and then you get that personal attention to them. um, but then when dealing in a private school setting, and then you're doing private lessons, it's more like not just they're just coming to you to learn a certain skill or learn a certain instrument, but also you have to like talk about things that they are facing in their everyday school lives. So it's almost like you're becoming a psychologist slash parent to them. So yeah, as to the classroom, in a classroom setting, whether it's private or government school, um, when trying to deal with students like one at a time, it's quite a different environment, whether you're facing a big class or a small class, and whether you're gonna get that personal attention. And then, in order for them, so that if they're falling behind, they will just come straight to you like after the lesson, so that they want to ask questions of things may or may not have missed during your lesson. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's a lot of valid points as well coming up, because I think the question kind of mainly covers the idea of, well, most effectively how this role of the teacher and role of the student works, more in
Mm,
a more in a private teaching sense. There's a lot of factors that come into play when you're working with a group of students, because it's a lot more difficult to pay attention to each student. I mean, there are strategies.
exactly.
Some teachers actually manage to do it well. I know back when I was teaching, there was a specific thing I used to do when I would start with the class. I would kind of tweak the syllabus because another thing is curriculum can can very much thank you for the hydrate, can very much interfere.
Mm,
The curriculum doesn't allow for you to get to know students, and it's always been an important thing for me because when I studied to teach music, Then we covered an aspect of the different personality types of students and understanding how they learn. So it became a thing where if I don't understand what students I'm working with, I cannot get them to effectively work in that classroom. So I would so my
Mm.
strategy would be I would do a general introduction on the course. What are we learning? Kind of moving forward, the difficulties some people might have, and then I would give them a side task, and that's the one that's not part of the curriculum, but it's just something where it allows me to go around and actually check in on the kids. How are you progressing with this? Um, are there any troubles you having with this task and whatnot? And it actually gets me to know how their mind works.
Hmm. It's
Mm.
interesting you said like that, man. So I have a similar tactic. To see like my approach is to more see like more than what students they are, like how committed they are to learning. So I'd give them the material, help them through it, and give them extra material on top of that. And I usually give it with this caveat, like I say, this is extra material that you can learn, but it's not necessary. It doesn't help, like you said, it's not part of the curriculum. So if I see that they go above and beyond and even do more than that tiny bit that I offered them, then I'd know, okay, this is like a good student I'm sitting with.
All right, yeah.
Mm. Right. Let me just jump in on that too. Um, yeah. So whenever I'm faced with with a class, so I'm seeing what type of students also, or what type of students I deal with. Um, you would go and do what's intended on on their school syllabus, but then also to bring in other side tasks or other side methods that's outside of their syllabus, and like go and try this, and then afterwards then you see students who just I had students come up to me asking questions, whether it's like what they had to learn for the test or what's the best way to understand this method, and then I would show it to them. I would have the so that like sacrifice my time to show them how it's done or how you're supposed to understand this topic.
Do you mean like when a student is struggling with a particular like a certain particular topic, you'd have to invest extra time to help them to understand?
Well, yes, yes. In that sense, I had to invest my time, to show that particular student and like how does this method work, and then you explain it to them. Even I get students who are also like they're actually getting the material, but then they're kind of like making sure they wanna get like 100% for the music test.
Oh,
It's interesting though, the dynamics, because Cloud, you talking from the university aspect, and
university and private, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Mm,
it's amazing how the different layers kind of are, or the different teaching fields, and obviously there again, there's a number of factors. But I think this is such an important question, especially for new teachers, because this is mainly the idea behind this. Because also, and we do have quite a few. I mean, we've got you, CloudX. Tim has been there for a while, as one of the teachers in international artistic development, and we've actually got Abby coming in on board as well.
Oh.
Um,
mm,
yeah, but it's nice because there's gonna be a lot of people. I know I've come across a lot of streamers that are very good at what they do, and I feel like they could, in a sense, start teaching some of their craft, but a lot of them are very scared to, because they don't understand a lot of the questions that we're actually covering today. But I think
mm,
within the topic, one thing I wanted to ask is, um, I think maybe you can answer this a little bit better, CloudX, because I haven't really, I've done like maybe masterclass and worked with some university students, but I haven't lectured at a university. So I'm curious how it differs in either teaching privately or teaching with a like a school class.
S- So, what I find is really different is in a lecture hall, there's it feels like there's a stronger attention on you, like than what you would get from a private lesson. So it's almost like somebody came there to do business with you. Like the focus is there. You don't get that from all of the students, but the majority of them. And I don't know, I think that's the best way to describe it. There's just a stronger focus.
All right, that's actually quite interesting, because I know in school and privately, it's normally you speaking from an instruction point of view, but it's the student that has the majority of the focus. It's not really
Yeah.
you, unless obviously you're explaining something at the board and whatnot. But then there's a lot more interaction. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah, it's a nice
Mm.
Like
distinction.
that's where I've gotten the most questions asked. Only in lecture theaters.
All right. Is there anything else you guys want to kind of add around this, or do you think it's safe to jump to the next topic?
I think it's safe to jump to the next one. I feel a lot of the things that's on my mind are on the other topics.
Yeah, I do feel it because I did
Yeah,
touch on
same here.
the curriculum, and there is a point later on. I know it's one that you brought up for one of the questions, touching on interesting curriculum. So I'm also interested to get to that one as well. All right, let's see what is our next one. All right, the next one is, where does a new teacher start from? So I know you guys might have to think back to when you first started teaching and stuff. But where do you actually start from? And I think it's a good it's good for us to answer this question for some new teachers, because we can actually look back and assess how we maybe started, and maybe come to a better kind of idea of what advice is best for new teachers, maybe to for them to avoid mistakes that you've made. I think from my side, just to kind of start on this, one of the things I felt was I didn't understand how much teaching could actually do for me. So when I started studying, my my goal was to become a performer, and I did do a lot of performances and whatnot. But in this day and age, it's very difficult to make a living out of that. You've got to be extremely lucky. Um, Even if you are very skilled, there's many skilled uh, performers in the world that are actually overlooked, or essentially go
Mm.
unnoticed. I've come across, like, even in the 1900s, there's people that I'm like, how come I've never heard of this person, and they've got such brilliant performances and whatnot. But so obviously I had to make money. I had to get into teaching. I had to start privately, and I was kind of in a tough position where I had to make money for myself during university to be able to pay for certain things. So I started teaching privately, and my approach was, I'm not happy with how my approach was, because it was just to make money. And only years
Mm.
later, I realized how much teaching actually did for me, because I had to sit with so many different students that come in, and each of their personalities are different, and how they process information is different. It made me look at music in so many various ways, and how to process the information in so many various ways, that I actually started becoming a better performer. So from my side,
Mm.
um, that's something that I would say, look at teaching a little bit more serious, because it can actually be important. It's not just to make ends meet in terms of money. It can change you very much.
Mm.
Mm. Would you say you got like more motivations from your students as you were going along?
Yeah, I did. I mean, there's definitely a crossing point for me where it went from I need this money to I'm really starting to enjoy this, because I'm also starting to learn a lot from this. And
Mm.
once I saw it coming out in
Mm.
my playing, um, I was sold on it. It became my passion. Now, I mean, this whole idea of my Twitch channel, the idea of international artistic development, everything is centered around me trying to create more opportunities for people to learn within the arts or music.
Mm.
All right. Anything from you guys?
I think I can speak too. I didn't actually start like straight away from teaching basically. So even studying in college. So after high school, I sort of like took a gap year, and then I went straight to freelancing, and it was just for a short period, and I was doing sort of like a choir workshop, preparing them for a choir competition, and which made them gain something in the end, and also gaining the recognition. So I was partnering with former choir 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 members that I sang with from the previous choirs I sang in, and so I thought, and I think that's where I started actually teaching something more like teaching a song. So it wasn't with African indigenous music, but not just African indigenous music, but also with the Western songs, and I was perfecting my conducting. So my main focus was I wanted to be a musician, and um, I observed a lot from my my music teacher back in high school, and watching him not just teach music in the classroom, but also um, watching him conduct my high school choir. Even if I was like part of in the choir, observing him conduct and watching him how he controls the choir, and which got me inspired to get into music, even though it was a bit of a debate back home. They didn't process it well of me doing music. They would rather choose. They rather had me to choose art than music. And I went on with my gut and said, like, no, I'm just gonna go with music. I'll face on with the risks in the end. Um, then from then on, I did sort of like a course in college, which is not mainly a teaching course, but I did wanted to, and then I just see the potential of teaching music or teaching in general, because I came up with former college students of mine that coming up to me asking a certain topic that I might be skilled at, because now they couldn't understand the lecturer, and so instead they will come to me and ask questions. So that's where I started teaching, and then after college, and then I I went I went on to teach. Not wasn't actually music a bit. Actually, it was computer skills to little grade ones and twos. So it was another skill I had. So I was also gifted with computers too. So, but I need to teach little kids how to use a computer to make them be more computer literate. And then after that, and then that's where I started teaching music. I didn't had like a proper teaching degree. Well, and as of this moment, I'm trying to get to that point of getting a proper teaching degree. Um, but I had the skill to teach music. It was not mainly to focus on uplifting that particular school's music or culture department, but also I wanted to better my skill in teaching music. Well, it was more like creative arts, so in the music side. And from then on, um, I've been doing that ever since, and it was more like a scarce subject to get teachers to teach creative arts or to teach music, basically, up to the point where I am now.
Okay. So it seems like there's been a lot of you've been kind of thrown into the deep end here and there with teaching.
Yes,
I think I've also
yes, I
had some
think.
of that at university. I kind of had to do it as well. So I was a little bit of a nerd where I had learned um, a lot of the material
Mm,
even for the following year, and it helped me to earn money as well because I would tutor people based on the university subject. Um,
mm.
yeah, so for me, it was very much survival at the time. I need to survive and yeah, work.
Yeah, music nerds need to survive.
um, for me, there's a lot of what happened in my journey was informal. A lot of informal, like teaching stuff. So I don't think it started with music. My journey came more in the way of software, teaching like different softwares to people, and eventually them finding out more about me and wanting to learn. Like, okay, you play guitar, can you maybe teach me? And from there, I was like way after high school. I started to pick up students and
Mm,
teach them, like doing it very informally. And eventually, one of my students came to the point where they asked me, "Do I want to be paid? Like, how much do you ask?" And I was completely mind blown. I'm like, you want to pay for what I'm doing? It didn't make sense to me because at I'm not like a professional musician or anything like that. I don't have a big name, so uh, I told them no, it's okay. And as I was getting
mhm,
more students, more the question came up like often, like how can you be teaching us for free? So I eventually cracked because one of my students, bless him, they they gave me money without my consent. Here, take this, and that gave me
ah,
the final push to do it a bit more formally, and like I have a curriculum to teach them, and so yeah, that's how I ended up where I am. Like
mm,
now I feel much more confident in my teaching because there's structure now. That push for people to invest their money into what I was teaching made me want to give them more quality rather than just my experience with how I experienced music because of the way I was teaching. I was teaching the
mm,
way I went through the music journey and how I got good at playing guitar. Um, but that didn't work for everybody, so I wanted to do something that was worth the money, so to speak, like an experience that's more uniform and flexible for different learning types.
mm.
Yeah.
I think I also want to add to this, or to my experience also. So when I was freelancing, I had to like work with people to see how more like a collaboration to see how they were doing it. And I was sort of like needing that guidance on how to do choral conducting. And attended like seminars and seminars for choir conductors to like learn the skills and to see if from what I've learned can I apply it to the choirs that I've been conducting. And then I to sort of like find my style of conducting and also my my style of music to what type of music that I need to do in the choral music side. And and also with the matters of me doing rehearsal tracks and not just like notating indigenous music but also doing choral tracks. But so I was just doing this for fun until I had to take it as an approach and like let me just like do this for real to help people to share my music to the world using a stream based platform where to share your tracks to and to see if you're gonna get some sort of a reaction or any comments. And it didn't started out as a person approached me and like, can you do this music for me? Well, rather more like I had to approach this to a certain musician, choir director, and then it will ask like, can you would you be able to do these couple of songs for me? So usually they'll just send songs to me, and I would learn it and then start recording. And I will re-record songs just for the fun of it, and until it came to the point now, let me just make profit out of it and just to share my skill, especially when it comes to African indigenous music.
I suppose that's actually a really good point there, because both of you guys are kind of uh, speaking around something that I think is very important for this question, which is starting from a place of knowledge and what you love doing. I think a lot of people stress out very much over, oh, but I've never formally done this and that. And I think if you're starting
Mm,
out as a new teacher, it's important to be honest with yourself and honest with whoever's coming for lessons. So if someone is coming for
mm,
um, piano lessons or whatever it may be, you can actually
mm-hmm,
just be upfront and say, look, um, I haven't had formal training, or uh, my teaching method is not specifically within a curriculum. It's going to be a bit different. But if if that is the case, then if the student is like, oh, okay, I wanted to do a curriculum, they'll go elsewhere. But you're also gonna find people
mm,
saying, oh, okay, no, I actually didn't want to learn formally. I actually wanted to learn that particular style. If you can teach that style, and so on and so on, because you can always work towards building yourself up until you reach the point where you can say, okay, now I can diversify a little. I can work with students within a curriculum because now I understand how it works, or I can teach this and this
mm,
concept, and so on. I mean, I come from very much a classical background, and then I started doing a lot of work in my first job, where I was kind of pushed into a situation where I had to read a lot of gospel songs and
mm,
some jazz based songs where you got to work with chords and using my ear to figure out stuff and whatnot. And eventually I got to the point where I could teach either classical or jazz.
mm. Yeah, I think for me and the on what type of music I was brought into, um, uh, I was brought into the jazz and R&B pop kind of music. I think the only thing that's closer to classical music for me was choral music. Um, I didn't have any training for music. So another thing about me is that I didn't know it back then until my teacher did discover that I have perfect pitch. So when notes just suddenly just came naturally to me, like understanding the music, I would just like I would just it's almost like you would hear the piano inside your brain, and then I would just instantly like pick up music there and then. Then people will ask me like, "Have I trained for this skill?" I'm like, no, it just happens naturally. So in terms of music, I had to sort of like proper understanding when it comes to like music theory, and then trying to get to the style of jazz singing and pop singing, not try to imitate the artist or try to do justice to the song and bringing it to my own style. And then from then on, when it comes to me being the person on sharing the skill to a student, like you said earlier, like I was more like thrown in the deep end kind of type of situation. It's kind of like that when I approach students. So it was more like I'll be up front with them. It's like I've never formally taught music production, but I'll try my best ability to get to the understanding of the theoretical side and the practical side of music production. So I had a student, and he would understand everything that I explained to, but then also adding a little bit of personal experience with certain things I faced in varsity or in college, on what my my lecturers would say, or how they would explain it. So they also had like an informal way of approaching a certain topic when it comes to music production. And there was also like an informal way uh, of singing, especially when it comes to pop singing.
All right. Anything you want to jump on there, Claudix?
No, 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 I'm good.
All right. Yeah. So just to kind of, I think from my side, I'm gonna answer the question a bit, just so if there is
Mm,
someone listening, then it clearly can kind of map out. So I'm gonna speak a little bit from my experience as well, because I have
mm,
had moments where I've had students that I've worked with that have gone from being my student to wanting to teach. And there's various things in the podcast as well that cover more in depth in these. But when you start as a music teacher, there's several
mm,
things to consider. So even if you're not working with a curriculum, and as we said earlier, start from a comfortable place. Um, Whatever your knowledge is, that's where you can work from. But it's a good idea to map out how much you can teach. So create a syllabus for yourself so that you have some sense of direction for where you are taking whatever student you've got.
mm,
And obviously, it may change as you go, because I think a lot of people also like to plan things out very much, but teaching is not like that. Every student you have and every class that you have functions very differently when they're together. So it's not always going to go how you want. So there's going to be a point where you've got to be like, okay, this person doesn't really want to go the direction I'm taking them in, or this has become a bit of an issue. So we've got to find a way around it. And then obviously we'll go more in depth into this, but there's gonna be cost, how much you've actually got to charge. And I can understand your stress, Claudex, because when I left university, and now I was like, okay, I'm qualified. It stressed me out very much because I was like, how much am I supposed to charge now?
I know,
Um,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, it is a stressful thing on like how much you're supposed to charge for your services when you teach a particular student or a group or a particular group of students.
yeah. I think there's someone that has taught me this. A good friend of mine that I worked with before, um, named uh, Menzi. I actually want him for one of the podcast episodes. Um,
Mm,
so he's a director, and I actually asked him about this question. So he mentioned that it's actually a good idea to sit down and map out um, how you feel about yourself in terms of teaching. So if you know you're not 100% confident that you can teach different styles and it's not the most professional teaching that you're going to have, then you know, teach what is honest, or charge what is honest to you, but then also map out the different things involved. So for instance, because it's very different, one-on-one teaching is a specific thing. If you're teaching a curriculum, there may be extra costs involved, but generally when you're working one-on-one, there's not much
mm,
cost in terms of what you're doing. Besides maybe this person is utilizing your instrument or something like that during the lesson, um, or maybe you're renting out an instrument because they don't have one or something. Then there's extra costs kind of involved, and you can add those things up. But bigger things, like
mm,
if I'm working with a choir, um, there's a number of things involved, which is
mm,
I may be I've got to prepare the music in advance. I've got to obviously there's points where you get asked kind of last minute and then you can't prepare, but generally if you've had enough time to prepare, it's you've got to practice the music so that you know how to teach it most effectively. That's
mm,
extra work there. Then there's the hours that you're putting in. If it's you primarily working with them and you are providing material, so maybe you providing the music, there's the printing costs and things. So all of that stuff add up, and it gives you an idea of how much you need to charge for what you are teaching. So things to think about.
mm.
Okay, I think I think that kind of covers where does a new teacher start from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that you highlighted teach what you feel comfortable with, essentially, because it's at the end of the day, like, if you don't feel like you're like confident enough or you got the skills to be teaching this, then you're gonna give that student uh I don't want to say a bad experience, but like not the best experience. Like, they'll be able to tell that you're not sure about what you're doing right now and question your, is the word validity, or
yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah.
Because
So
Mm.
like if you can't teach, if you've never read music, you can't teach it.
exactly.
Exactly.
And sometimes we just try to be something else, and we don't actually realize, like if you look at someone that has studied music, they also have their limitations. If someone has
Mm,
studied classical music, they can't just all of a sudden teach jazz. It doesn't work.
Mm.
And jazz is
yeah.
also very different person to person. You find that if you look at all your jazz legends and all of the best jazz teachers, every one of them had a uniquely different experience. It's one of the
Mm.
things I was talking about with a colleague years ago. We they've been trying to create a curriculum around jazz, and You can't really. It's a very free form of art. So
Mm.
you can try your best, but it's only going to restrict the student at the end of the day. Um, yeah. Anyway, um, I think another thing, kind of just before I move on, uh,
Mm.
of the whole where does a new teacher start from is also rules and kind of etiquette in terms of dealing with students, and that is something that we're going to cover in a bit as well. All right, are we fine to move on to the next one?
Yes.
Fine by me.
Alrighty. All right, now we are on to this point of costs, contract, or contracts, and etiquette. And what I mean by etiquette
Mm.
is how should you behave around students. Um,
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
yes, so it is a big question because, eh, well, for one, depending where you're working, there's certain, they expect certain etiquette.
Hmm.
Um,
Mm.
and if you're working on your own, you obviously want to protect yourself as much as possible. Um, I think let me actually start with this because this is a very important one, especially in today's
It's a
age.
loaded question, Mads.
Yeah, yeah. No, but it is an important one to tackle because um, there are incidents that have happened between people, and on both ends, where people have been accused of some stuff or someone has actually done stuff. So, how should one actually behave in a lesson?
Okay.
Mm.
Can I start with this one?
You may start. You
I
may.
I have stories
You
to
missed
tell.
it.
It's
You.
most of my teachings are private, um, and it's both genders. So I find that that is a massive determining factor as well, and especially their age too. Wow. Um, you better not be teaching a teenager or somebody that's not of age without their parents knowing. Oh my God. Like at the time, like when I was starting, I wasn't even asking for money. Like I was just teaching because they wanted to know something. I think I was
Mm.
like 23. They were like 15. But like
Ooh.
one day, here they come with their mother asking, "Who are you?" And I'm like, I'm me. Hi, how you doing?" Uh, and they questioning me on how I am like treating their child, and like they come home like
Mm.
sometimes this time, and they had no idea it was a massive shitstorm. It was scary. Uh, so they once they figured out that all I was doing was teaching their child some music, they settled down. But man, that was one of the scariest moments. Definitely, like before anything starts, like make it known to, if they are minor or they are not of age, make it known to their parents, them or guardian, that you are teaching them and that they are spending their time here. You'll save yourself so much trouble across the line, even if it isn't music related or you're teaching them whatever. It's just drama for no reason, and you get questioned hard on what you're doing, and it gives you a look like from a community perspective, because that mother is gonna go talk to somebody else and they'll leave a name on you, and you don't want that.
Mm.
Um, and then there's the gender thing. This is a recent story. I was doing a private lesson for this female student, and um, wow, the way the way it is, right? She's of age. I am not a formal teacher. She did not want to interact with me at all, but she also wanted to learn guitar. Can you guys see how
Oh.
this is not gonna work? Like, so She wanted to try to do it all online. And I'm progressive, so I said, okay, yeah, we can try. The issue with that is she's not good with technology. So
Oh,
it was like I can't hear you. I'm not sure where do I put the webcam. It was a mess. So
wow.
yeah, I was telling her, look, if you want to really make good use of your money, we can't be spending an hour troubleshooting your setup at home. Rather come meet with me. And what ended up happening was more of a hangout with a stranger to try and understand who is this in this context man that I'm dealing with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's me now, the man, because later on, when we finally understood each other and we got to the point of me sitting down with the guitar, teaching her with the guitar, she told me the
Mm-hmm.
reason why she wanted to do it like that in the first place was because I'm a man that's teaching informally. She did not feel safe. She did not feel safe
Oh.
one bit being for that amount of time with somebody she doesn't know, hasn't seen. Like, I mean, there's YouTube videos and stuff, but that doesn't say anything about my personality. So she was really scared about that type of interaction. So for my future like endeavors, I am definitely incorporating some type of something where they can see who I am, sit down with me to get to know me as a person. Because after the conversations we had, just so she knows she's safe, I had a great student. Like, and I
Yeah,
felt
yeah.
like she got great
Mm.
value for her money. Like, it was great.
Mm.
That's
Um,
yeah. Those are actually really nice points for people to kind of see. I think I was lucky in the sense that my experiences has have always been from the beginning I've actually thought about that stuff and I've always insisted, and I think it helps because my dad did teaching, so I've got that kind of backing of how he dealt with students, how he drew up contracts and things like that.
mm,
So um, when a student expressed interest, my first thing was, this is not how we start. I've got to meet your parents and we've got to discuss what it is exactly that you want, what they want, and moving
exactly.
forward. And then the second thing I also do is the door is always open. Lessons are not primarily just one on one, nobody else allowed in. Parents can come and sit in on lessons. Obviously, I draw the line at someone that neither of us know coming in and watching because it makes things a little bit awkward for the student and
Yeah.
they don't feel comfortable
Mm.
playing and learning in that environment. But yeah, I welcome the parents in, and yeah, it helps a lot to think about things like that.
Mm.
Mm.
I think the other thing, so just thinking of what you mentioned, the student being awkward. I know for me as well, I've built up a list of contacts in case of things like that. Because now and again, because you don't know the history of a student, you don't know what they've faced in the past. Um,
Mm.
so sometimes it's better to refer them to someone that is of the same gender.
Yes.
Yeah, and there is actually a friend of
Mm.
mine that it's the opposite sense. There's a friend of mine who teaches an instrument, and she doesn't feel comfortable teaching male students because
Oh.
she's married and she
Mm.
kind of doesn't want to even risk the possibility of something. So um, she only teaches female students.
Mm.
So yeah, but obviously every person is different. Um, yeah, curious, Tim, from your side, anything to say?
Um, I'd say in terms of private music teaching, it's only like started like last year when I was an intern in in a particular school. Won't mention the name of the school. So um, as a private teaching was like the first time for me to like deal with students who wanted to like learn an instrument. It's just that most of my life I had dealt with classroom teaching and choir conducting school choirs. So I had kind of like some incidents sort of, but then it's never, it was more like I had to like stand my ground to like disciplining a certain student when it's getting too far as it getting too far. I'm saying in a professional sense that I'm the teacher, he or she is a student. So if a certain student has to like cross that line and it's like you have to stop, or else I have to reprimand you and report you to your grade head.
Hmm. And that's
So I
tell
had
me, is that like
yes,
specifically in your in the school context?
yeah, it's in the school context. So I was in a classroom. So so I gave certain student a certain class, or I gave all my students the same as assessment or assignment that they were supposed to do at home and then submit it at a certain date. And then they saying that they were not doing so well. I was like, can't you can't you just give me any extra marks? And then usually it happens, for me it happens to female students when they approach me in an which puts me in an awkward position, but more like, how should I put it? They were trying to be flirtatious, which is kind of like unprofessional for me as a teacher. And they was like, "You better stop, or else I'm reporting to your teacher." And I had to scold that particular student in front of the whole class. Of which is a kind of also another problem as teachers. Like, how do you even maintain your emotions? Like, you don't want to reach the point now you have to cast them out in front of the classroom
Well, yeah,
and
you
in
kind
front
of.
of their peers.
But I think it's an interesting point to mention, and I think the safest option for, because it has happened. There have been many points where uh, students are actually the ones that also somehow try to manipulate, in a sense. And I think in that sense, it's important to also not just have private meetings. So if someone is asking about an assessment or something like that,
Mm,
then you can have, oh, okay, this person is wondering about this and this. These students can come together and we can discuss the questions. Or if it's just the one student that is wanting to, in extra time, ask about something, have another teacher there with you, just for
mm,
safety's sake. Um, yeah, because a lot of things like that can also end in a he said, she said kind of situation. But
Hmm.
exactly.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah.
Mm. I think
That's
I want to also add. Sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to also add another situation. So it's more like not actually like you're teaching a classroom, more like you are in an invigilator for a particular exam. So I was invigilating a different subject other than music. So I had to give warnings to a particular student for disruption, and then it reached to the point that I gave him 3 strikes. So I approached him, took his script, and then I had to tear it off so I can give him another script to start over because I warned him. And then that's more like I'm doing that as an integrity from as a teacher, and how I discipline the student. When it reaches to the point that the student now becomes unruly and disturbs the whole exam venue and exam session until another teacher intervenes, and it gets to the point now there's like the student is like name calling you, and I I kid you not, I almost lost my temper that day. I was almost close to strangling the student.
Oh, Tim.
Yeah, I know, but I had to sort of like pull myself back, and was like, no, this is not worth it.
Yeah,
And
I
then I had
think
to walk away from.
we've all had as teachers some points where students really really push buttons, and
They do, eh?
Mm,
it's a big
yes, they do.
responsibility as as a teacher to actually keep your cool. Yeah, it's yeah,
Yeah,
it's a bit hectic. Yeah. But yeah,
yeah,
I've heard lots of stories with exams. And interactions like that within classrooms. You never know how things are going. I know it's a particular
yeah.
big thing in America. Apparently, there's a lot of people leaving the teaching profession because of behavior of students. But yeah,
Mm,
in any case, let's try and keep a little bit on track. Let's see.
yeah.
Yeah. So just stuff to consider in terms of etiquette. I think a lot of what is here, so the cost, contract, and etiquette, kind of
Mm,
centralize around the contract. So when the student and the parent who's involved, or if it's an adult and it's just the student signing, um, all of this stuff is there
mm-hmm,
in terms of what costs are there, what etiquette is kind of there, what lines and boundaries you kind of have that you need to draw for yourself.
mm,
Because etiquette is very broad because it can be behavior within teaching, uh, whether it be from the student or um,
mm-hmm,
or the teacher. But then it also refers to things like discipline and where to draw the line, as I said. Um, because you've got to think of things. So I'll give you an example. There's someone I know who has a very very big um, music teaching studio. So there's always a waiting list, and having a student that
mm,
um, if you've got the student on and they're not making progress, you're meeting with them every time and they're not really putting in the effort. They are
mm,
essentially taking up space of a possible student that is waiting in line. So you can draw a line there if you are really focused on progress, then, because this is just an example per se, because each person will have their own things they kind of want to focus on. But drawing a line and saying, okay, listen, it's been a year, you haven't made any progress. I say go and practice this, you haven't practiced this. I
mm,
unfortunately I've got to let you go. It's in the contract, and so on and so on. Yeah, so things like that as well fall under the whole etiquette and um, the importance of having these rules within the contract. And then I think I
yeah.
basically did speak about costs. I don't know if you guys want to mention anything from your side, maybe suggestions or stuff that you dealt with in terms of costs and dealing with contracts.
Um, from my side, I found that it's more related to philosophy of teaching, like, but it also involves the cost. So I'm just gonna give a little bit of what I have to say there too. Um, so when I pick up a new student, I try to look at their circumstance. Like, where are they at in life right now? Like, what can they like do, and what can I offer them? So what I
Mm,
mean by that is I can offer them a space to practice. Do they need guitars as well to play? Like things like that. And also where to put that price point. And also the expectation, like what's the expectation? Like some of them want me to go all the way to them. That would obviously up the price. Others would prefer to come to like a venue that I choose. Um, most people don't prefer to come to my place. They prefer to be in a more open environment, like the university, and sit on a open bench somewhere and teach. And all of those factor in the cost, like the traveling and that, carrying around the luggage. So, yeah, and then there's the contract. Most people in my context, they prefer to what's it called, like pay per lesson or pay per hour. They prefer those types of contracts. They would pay for the select amount of time. So let's say somebody wanted like a 2 hour lesson. Like they expect me to follow through with that, regarding with my equipment as well. And the ones that want pay by listen, those are more the ones with the contextual issues that I deal with. For them, I would give preferably a lowest possible price, and even for free, depending. Like if they really do have a terrible circumstance, I believe that nobody like should be deprived of learning the arts. It's uh, it's not in me to say no as well. Like if somebody really wants to learn and can prove to me like that they really want this, then I will teach them.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Look. We can give examples as much as we can, but it is all dependent on the person. There have been
Yes.
cases as well myself where I've um, worked with students, and I could see these kids they can't afford, and I've
Mm.
created programs for them where they can learn and things like that. Um, so yeah, it's important that there's also people doing stuff like that because, well, who, otherwise there's not going to be someone doing that.
Mm.
Yeah. And then I think
Mm.
just to kind of maybe a little bit expand a bit on this because I've seen it a lot with different teachers, and we've talked a lot about it. So you mentioned the pay lesson per lesson. Obviously, it's as per person, but I think from my side, just a bit of a suggestion there. Um, if you are charging lesson by lesson, because there's two options essentially. There's a kind of like a package deal where people pay for a term or a month. It does sometimes um, push people to attend more often because sometimes people that are paying once off kind of use it as an excuse not to attend if they haven't worked enough or
Mm.
something.
That is something I've experienced.
Mm.
Yeah, but I think the best of both worlds is sometimes an option because you're going to get people who, um, because I've had that situation where I've sometimes had students that every now and again they can only come to a lesson. So then I've actually got specific
Mm.
days where my set students that are consistent students and they pay in by term or whatever it may be, that's when I teach them. And then
Yeah.
have another
Mm.
day where your free students you can kind of work with, where they pay and whatnot. And obviously, if they don't come or if they can't pay that lesson, then hey, you've got a maybe an early day off or something.
That's a nice way to think of it, and I'll probably implement that now. Like I never thought to do it in that type of way.
Mm.
Yeah. All right. I think we've covered the cost contract etiquette. You guys fine to move on?
I'm
Yep.
happy.
All right. So we've actually got our more of an audience related question. So if the audience is around, if people are still listening, um, this question is so well. It's for us as well as them. So we'll kind of start answering
Mm-hmm.
this, and it gives time for if anyone has an answer to this. So the audience question is: who is a memorable teacher for you? And it can either be a bad or a good teacher because sometimes we've had some bad experiences. All right. So I'll go first with this one. So who is a memorable teacher for you? So back when I was in school, there was a physics teacher that he always used to. I was a very quiet student, and he always used to push me quite a bit. Um, and I think a lot of teachers sometimes push students, but it's interesting because he focused on me because I was not an achiever. I wasn't someone that really went out of my way to do work and stuff. I wasn't the teacher's pet or anything, and he actually focused on me and he explained, I want to see you uh, progressing and a difference in you. And I remember there was one thing he taught me, um, and I think Rosie remembers this because I told her this. I have not forgotten it to this day. So he was teaching Faraday's law, and every lesson he would check on me. He said, "Have you memorized Faraday's law yet?" And to today, I still remember uh, the rate of charge of a magnetic flux is directly proportional to the amount of induced
Oh,
EMF.
not mad, no. Wait, so is he a good teacher?
No, so he's a good teacher. So he managed to push me in ways that I didn't think I could achieve certain things. And my passion for I wouldn't say, because I mean physics and chemistry is combined for us. I don't know if it's still like that in the syllabus, but that's what I remember back when I was in school. Um, and my passion for chemistry just budded there. I really loved. Um, Working with different formulas and things. And if he had never pushed me, I would have never discovered that side of me. And then I think a bad example that I can give you guys is, let's see. So when I was in primary school, there was a teacher. I can't even remember her name, but I wouldn't mention her name anyway. Um, but some people hadn't done homework in class, and it was back in the time where you got a bit of a hiding if you didn't do stuff or you weren't a good student. Um, so, but she was a bit extreme. And I remember what scared me the one day was there was a friend of mine at the back of the class who was talking while she was teaching. And the next thing, the duster flew. And the duster
Mm-hmm.
flew. Um, now I saw the whole thing. I was from a vantage point where I saw her throw it, and I saw him. And this duster went through the window, and she said to him, "You lucky I wasn't aiming for your head." But from where I was watching, if he didn't duck, it would have hit his head.
Oh
So yeah,
God.
that's my story.
Oh, oh, that must have been amazing.
Wow.
Oh, oh, that teacher must have been covering themselves.
Yeah. I think I can go next. So I have like multiple. I won't say as a teachers, like multiple teachers, just a few that are memorable to me. Um, so in high school, um, it's when I was in class. I There was a time I sort of like got pissed off and I didn't do like homework. So my music teacher and now starts to scold me in front of the music classroom. And mind you, I'm one of the top students in the classroom. And then it reached to the point that now I was like, I'm not in the mood to answer his question. And then he would say, "In my office now." So I walked I walked out of the classroom into his office, and then thought I was expecting like he was going to scold me more, but then instead it was the other way around. He then now goes all reverse psychology to me. He's like, "No, like, listen, my boy. I know that you lose your temper sometimes, but then you don't have to keep doing that. I'm always worried about you. So whenever you're feeling some sort of way, express it in your music. Just use that emotion." Okay. At that, I did not expect. I thought I was like gonna get in trouble for real. And then to this day, with my methods, well, my methods of trying to express music, each and every emotion, I would, I would use that method of feeling the emotion of of the song, whether it's written by someone or it's a song that I wanted to write or compose, and then I just put it out there just to get things off my system, which I had to use as a therapeutic way to this day. So that's one teacher, and that sort of teacher, he's memorable in the fact that in the choir, whenever he's not happy with something, and Mads, you know the story. Um, he would take anything that's near him, whether it's a chair or a music stand, and would throw like right at us, and then would keep ducking every time. Like we're in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we still have to this day, like me and a couple of other friends of mine that I was in the choir with, we still have that memory of him, that the old him would throw chairs, music stands, anything he can find when he's pissed. But then overall, he's a good teacher. That's teacher number one. Um, teacher number teachers were in the number two spot was my art teacher and the other music teacher. The other music teacher had issues on mentioning another former te- former music teacher's name in the music department. Did not want to hear his name. So he had some sort of a personal agenda. So, what he did, I missed an exam, a music prac exam, due to the fact that I was writing another exam at that day and didn't come there on time. So they asked me to write a letter for re-examination. So I wrote that letter back home, and with the help of my grandmother, to see if it will be acceptable. I took the letter to my music teacher, and he said, "No, this is unacceptable. Start over." I'm like, "Okay." So I went to write my music comprehension exam that day for 1 hour. After the exam, he asked for the letter back, and then I went home. I was almost home, and then getting a phone call from my mom saying that I'm needed in the to see the deputy principal. I was like, "Oh my goodness, am I in trouble?" So I told my grandmother that we have to go back to school. I'm needed in the office. So went back to school, went to the deputy principal's office. The principal now starts scolding me for missing my exam. They said this is unacceptable. And then the one thing he did was took his pen, drew a line across my letter, and says he's giving me naught officially for my prac exam. And then I told him like what happened. He asked for that letter. He asked me to start over. And I was like, no, that's not my problem. You sort it out. So now the next thing I did was to go and confront him for his mess up or his intentional mess up until I found him by the photocopy room. And then I confronted him asking why he sent the wrong letter. And the one I would never forget this comment. And he said, well, you should have planned your life.
What the heck?
Wow.
I know. So after that comment, about 5 seconds later, I started calling him the devil in Zulu for the whole staff room to hear. And I clicked my tongue going and walked out upset. And the next thing he did is call my mom and says that I cussed him out in a foreign language.
Oh yeah.
Aish.
Yeah, yeah. And then the next day, I was given that chance to do my prac exam after my art prac. So I was in a break with my art classmates. He came to me approaching and said like, do you want to do your exam or not? I just I and then the next thing I just said to him like, do whatever you like, I don't care. And then he walks away. And
Also,
then my
also,
classmates were
so
like,
after the drama, he
yes,
wanted to
was this
make you do
after
your
the
exam.
drum? Yes. Like you gave me the same energy that day. I'm gonna give you the same energy back. I was like, do whatever, I don't care. And then when it was like, they was like, Tim, are you crazy? I was like, no, if he feels like he wants to film, he can go ahead. I just don't care anymore. And then, well, I had to do it for the sake of my mom telling me you need to actually pass this exam. So take that chance. Mind you, I was still sick at that time. And then when I went to do my exam, he just gives me this cold, icy look throughout the exam. And I was like, oh, so this is how it's gonna be. Fine.
Mm.
Well, isn't that
Okay.
normally how examiners are, though? The cold, icy look. So, okay, you can start.
Not even when it's not like not when they're like really upset with you on a personal level. Like they'll just have to use their personal emotions just to get their way. So
Mhm.
during that exam, and then I sang all my songs, and then the other teacher can sense the tension between us, which made the whole situation awkward. And then he will go on and says, "Congratulations, you got 80%." Even even though he wasn't happy, he was like,
I like how
"Okay,
you portray this grumpy boy.
yes."
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
So yeah, so he was a good musician. It's just that he didn't have any people skills. And it
yeah.
was also the reason I left the choir during matric, where I sort of walked out of rehearsal, and then he shouts saying, "Never come back!" whatever. And then I said, whatever, flipped him off, and slammed the door.
It shouldn't be. I want to cheer you on, but I don't know what that says about me as a person and as a teacher. Like,
Mm,
uh, I grew up rebellious, so a part of that hasn't gone away in me. So I'm just like, yeah, stick it to him. Let him have it
yeah.
in the back of my head.
Rosie's having a good laugh in the background here. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I also had like a rebellious days, but then I sort of had to better myself as a teacher now that I don't want to reach to the point that when I get students and then they decide to be rebellious with me, that I would just see this and this blows up into my face.
Oh,
Yeah.
you don't want a student like yourself.
It's
No, no, no. Me back in high school, I was rebellious to my teachers when we reached some sort of disagreements. Like in college, um, also happened. Well, it happened during my prac exam. So I was doing a piano exam as a prac, uh, and it was my second year. So he asked me to play a few major scales. So I played it to him. When it came to minor scales, now that becomes a problem. So he asked me, play D natural minor scale. Okay. I played it to him. And then he suddenly just reacts and then was like, try again. I gave him the side and I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. I played again. He proceeds to correct me during the exam. Like, shouldn't it be like a sharp six, sharp seventh? And I gave him the side eye again, and I was like, are you serious right now? You asked for a natural minor scale. And then I had to correct him during my exam, explaining how how minor scales work, explaining about natural minor, harmonic minor, and melodic minor during my exam. And then the next thing he did, he just pulls a stunt by taking out his laptop, puts his internet dongle, and goes on YouTube to find a video explaining about minor scales, preferably the natural minor. And then when the explanation proved what I said to him off the top of my head, he just suddenly keeps quiet and says, "Okay, let's carry on."
Hey, this is why you must teach what you're
Hey.
comfortable with.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly,
Otherwise, that's gonna happen. Wow.
exactly.
I don't think
And like
I
it,
would be able to deal with that type of embarrassment. Like, wow.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know. It's like what you get teachers like they wanna prove themselves that they are right all the time. They cannot be wrong. And I was like, it's okay to make a mistake. And then I always being upfront with students in a classroom, like you can I can sometimes I can be wrong. So correct me if you find somewhere that I'm wrong. I will own to that mistake. Even like during rehearsals, I will say, sorry, that's a mistake. Sorry about that. We can try again.
Mm.
Yeah,
Like it.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, Tim, because that's an important thing. Actually, the whole honesty thing, because at the end of the day, we're humans, and there's gonna be times
Mm,
where we mess up, and it's good for
true.
students to see that we're willing to be like, oh, okay, let me correct that then, and whatever. Yeah.
Mm.
Cloudex, anything from
Yeah.
your side here?
So, a funny thing is, right? I don't have that much stories with teachers in particular. While growing up, you could say I was in my own world. School and teachers didn't really matter at that time in my life. Like I was so floaty that like the things that happened in schools, it's most of it is a blur. Like I do have one memory though of also a physics teacher that I think he was just a bully. He was just a bully to his students, and he picked on me and my friend. So what ultimately happened was every single time we get a class from him, it's also like chemistry and physics together. He would like go for his lesson, and without like without fail, he would like ask me the question or my friend the question, and then if we get the question wrong, he would make fun of us for some reason, and that was consistent for like a long period of time. Like we had him for I think 4 years. And Peter the Great, I think it's 4 years that I had him. And somewhere in between those years, I decided I had enough. I'm not gonna say what I did, um, but the things I said made him like rethink. Okay, maybe you shouldn't be doing these types of things. And the following day, suddenly he's trying to be friendly with me and my friend, and it's like something clicked in his head, and it wasn't just with me. It was
Mm.
very much with all of the other students as well. I think like what happened might have like sent like scared him or something, or made him realize he was doing wrong. And like when I reached my matric year, and he was like still being the same, I was baffled. I'm like, how can somebody go through such a big change in such a short time? It didn't add up to me. But yeah, he was a terrible teacher in that sense. Like I'm glad he changed, but the experience, the years I had him where
Mm.
he wasn't good, it was terrible. I didn't want to go to that class. I felt like I learned nothing, and
Mm.
yeah, that was just terrible.
All right. Sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that's the like only story I can think of now of like teachers that I've had in high school and so on. So when I actually started taking note of like my surroundings and stopped being all bubbly and in my own world was when I started picking up like that I can get good at stuff if I put like effort into it and actually try. So I came across, I guess you can call them YouTube teachers. So it's like those
Mm.
tutorial videos you would find, like the teachers like from all around the world, they would make their own content and just upload it to YouTube. And I happened to find this one teacher. I think his name was Andy James. He'd make like a whole bunch of tutorials on how to play this style, how to get good at this technique and this. And while I'm watching him play, I was in awe. Like, wow, look at this dude go. But at the same time, he, the way he structured his content and made it easy to consume, and the time he'd take on every single little thing and explaining the theory, it was it was amazing. I couldn't believe I was learning from a video, but behind that video was a
Mm.
person, and I guess that was the best teacher I have had in my life. And he wasn't even there to be with me.
All
Mm.
right. But I've seen it come up a number of times with I think I saw a post the other day about someone that was doing online classes, and
Mm-hmm.
it was videos that were created by a teacher, and
Mm.
he was saying, no, he's so thankful because he's learned so much, and you can kind of sense the passion behind the teacher involved in it
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Mm.
But let me get to the one answer I got here. So Rosie Ye added something. Okay, I found it. So she's got two. So she says one was my geography teacher who would give us extra information outside the curriculum and actually made me want to watch lots of documentaries in high school, which spurred me to study in the environmental field. And then she tramped a teacher's foot once, and she nearly
Ooh.
she nearly kicked Rosie's butt.
Wow.
Ouch.
Dang, Rosie.
Yo.
All right. So I think we can move on now to some of the more serious stuff again. But just a reminder to the audience: if you want to send some questions for either me, Cloudex, or Tim, there is a question and answer section that we'll have if you've got any questions for us. Alrighty. Okay, question number 4. Or topic number 4. Philosophy of teaching. What is it and why is it important? I think before we kind of share our points, I'll just kind of clarify. I think one of the reasons I've also added this in is the philosophy of teaching is an important aspect of kind of mapping out your progress within setting up your teaching. But a lot of people look at this, philosophy of teaching, what does that even mean? And a lot of people skip over it. So what philosophy of teaching is actually almost a bit of a declaration. You kind of summarizing what is important for you when you're teaching and where you are basically taking that student to. It's in a sense a long-term goal that you are setting. And obviously each person that teaches has their own philosophy of teaching because they have their own set of beliefs and their own set of goals that they would like to achieve when teaching. Yeah. So that sums it up a bit.
Mm. Can I start with this one?
Yes, you may.
I mentioned it in the previous question, like about what my philosophy with teaching is. Like, I believe everybody should have the freedom to learn whatever they want to learn, be that in the music fields, the arts, technical, whatever it may be. And that translates to a lot of things that you as a teacher need to do. Like, when I say everybody should have the opportunity, then I mean everybody. Doesn't mean their circumstance, doesn't mean like where they come from, doesn't mean their ethnicity, doesn't mean their political view. None of that matters when it comes to whether they should learn or should not learn. That means I don't care what soccer team you support. I am not concerned that you live in what area. I teach all. So yeah, it comes with its challenges as well. Once you commit to teaching everybody, that means you need to take all the bad and the good that comes with it. Um, for one, you need to be comfortable going to areas that you're not familiar with, or like you need to constantly be at a point of trying something different that you don't know. It's it's a lot, but it also it makes you, I want to say, happy. I think that's the simplest I can describe. It makes you happy and it feels fulfilling. Yeah, there we go. That's the word I'm looking for. You feel fulfilled in seeing like all the people's lives you change, like especially if you get them to a point of they can play that song they recommended you when you first teaching them. Like it's always an amazing experience to see them happily playing the instrument, and that more than anything gives me joy. No matter where in the world somebody is, what context they came from, rich, poor, uh, Liverpool supporter, Manchester United supporter, whatever. Like it's just very nice.
I think one of the things I like with um, seeing other teachers' philosophy of teaching is like listening to you now Cloudx is that you get to see the more personal side, because everything else like the curriculum they teach and the technicalities and stuff doesn't really
Uh,
show you the person behind or the teacher behind everything. And
it's
it
all
and it
black and white. Like
yeah,
that.
so the philosophy exposes the heart of the teacher involved or the people behind the institute that have created it.
Mm.
I agree with you there, Mads. Like I know some teachers that's they sit there, they're like, I need the money and teaching is pretty stable. Like, but then, like, I see their lessons and how they go about things, and then I'm like, why are you actually doing this? Like, did you like the subject that you're teaching to begin with? Because some teachers I see half miserable, and not because of the students. Like, you can have some really bad students, but this isn't a case of that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think from my side, um, my philosophy it touches a little bit on what you spoke about. I feel very strongly about inclusivity of music,
Oh.
Mm.
and that's getting people who aren't included in the idea of or the way things are set out in the education system. I feel, education, your general education is for everyone, but within the field of music, it's really difficult because instruments are expensive,
Yes.
lessons, the
Mm.
prices go up and up and up, and there's a lot of teachers that one thing I don't believe in is keeping your rate at a very standard rate,
Oh, that
because
that never works, man. It
yeah,
never
Yeah.
works.
it doesn't work, because if you in a particular area, yes, okay, you can charge a specific rate, but then you can't expect to be in a rural area and you charging like 500 rand a lesson. Nobody's going to come because nobody can afford that. And that is one of the things with inclusivity,
Mm.
but also trying to create an environment where um, you can educate and include more people within that system. And that one of the things I created with this was where I created this unique syllabus. I mentioned it. I didn't mention the syllabus, but I mentioned the situation earlier to you guys, um, of where I worked with some students that they were underprivileged, so they couldn't afford lessons. They didn't have an instrument, so I created a special syllabus where instead of them paying something like 400 rand for a lesson, they pay
Mm.
something like 30 rand each of them, and they come in a big group, so it makes up the money that I need for the work that I put in, but
Mm.
it makes things incredibly cheap for them as well. And yeah, so it's a tailor-made syllabus and whatnot, and things like that are useful for inclusivity.
Mm.
And we need more projects
Mm.
like that. But
Definitely.
yeah, but otherwise,
Definitely.
I think my philosophy also stretches very much around, because that's more of a personal thing for me. But my philosophy kind of circles around the idea of mind, body, and time. It's always been one of my core things that I like. It's understanding how the mind works in music and getting a student to kind of understand that aspect. How the body is
Mm.
involved when playing or performing, and understanding the body in that sense. And time, the time aspect is very much thinking about your life, um, organizing everything, because I find this is a huge problem for students. Um, they don't know how to manage time. So a lot
Mm.
of students say, "Oh, I didn't get to practice this week," and it always comes back to it's a time problem. They don't know how to manage their time that they have
The
within the
time.
week, and that's why they can't practice. Nobody's ever taught them how to manage their life and how to deal effectively with time. So yeah, that's my philosophy of teaching.
Mm.
Mm. Now, I would say from my side, with philosophy of teaching, um, I'm saying this in experience with teaching in a classroom. It's more of like having the relationship with your students is 50-50. So it's a give and take relationship. And as teachers, we're all like instructed to teach them something so they can learn something. But also, we teachers also have to have an open mind to learn something that our students can teach us something new, something that we may not know in our years of teaching or our experiencing in teaching. So that's the kind of philosophy I think I kept I kept living though all those words, or I keep living it too. And this is something that was shared from my college lecturer during my second year. Oh, he start, it was on my first year actually. So he shared something and says to whatever we know, we need to just shut it down for a bit and let give them we have to give them a chance to teach us something as students, and then if the opportunity comes, we should teach them something they don't know. And usually that works well with me and how I teach my students, that I don't want to reach the point that now I'm this type of teacher that like I'm right all the time. My students are wrong. They cannot. What is that they're gonna teach me? No, I just had to have an open mind as a human being to like learn new methods or to be open to other new teaching methods when you approach students. So yeah, I think that is my philosophy of teaching.
All right. That last point is a nice thing as well, there, Tim, because
Mm,
although it's important to have a philosophy when you're starting out to kind of give you a
mm,
sense of direction, as you
mm,
go, things change. You learn from either past mistakes or you learn better methods and things like that, or you grow as a person and you discover new things that you want to do. And I always find myself updating my philosophy or adding on to it in certain ways.
mm.
So yeah, it's not
Yeah.
really a set thing.
And yeah. And just to touch on this specific topic, I also kind of feel like sometimes as teachers, like we don't know what's the actual what's the actual philosophy of teaching sometimes. Like we're just like there just to teach students, not finding a way to inspire them. But then I don't think any teacher would know what's the actual true well what's the actual true definition of philosophy of teaching.
Um, yeah, it's one of the things I mentioned at the beginning. A lot of people don't understand what is the philosophy of teaching, but I also think there's a lot of teachers um, that join certain institutes, and every institute has their own philosophy of teaching or their own kind of a statement that they have when it comes to what their goal is. And a lot of teachers don't actually
Mm,
know what that goal is. They just teach.
mm.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think we've covered that nicely. Anything to add?
Mm. Oh. Are we gonna have a free talking session? Like what because I'm having thoughts that's outside of the context of what we're mentioning.
I mean, definitely. When we reach the Q&A, we can
Mm.
actually do it in that space. Then it also
Mm,
gives the audience a bit of time to think if they've got some questions for us as well.
nice.
Mm.
All right, we're actually almost there. Wait, this thing double jumped there. What is going on? Why is this thing going nuts? Okay, here we are. Question 5. Oh, this is Cloudex's question. Learning out of interest or in a school curriculum. Is a curriculum less attractive to students? I think from my side, with my experience, because I've had students from both ends, and I feel this is actually very open ended in terms of an answer because um, yes, sometimes a curriculum can be less attractive to a student. I've sometimes, if a student is kind of leading that way, I've got to lead into um, getting them into a curriculum. Um, because a curriculum structure is sometimes an asset to a student, particularly if they're progressing quite nicely. But you get students that have particular interests, and a curriculum can actually be a hindrance to them as well.
Mm.
I mean, if a student is coming to me to learn piano, specifically for studio work, then me teaching them Chopin and Beethoven is of almost no use to them whatsoever, and I'm forcing them down a side that is one, not going to help them, and two, it's not their goal, and it kind of goes against their wishes. I'm
Mm.
always very sensitive to the interest
Mm.
of students because I mean, they can grow as a person. There's things that I didn't like as a student and eventually grew to like. And there's some things that I didn't like as a student, and people said, "Oh, eventually you'll grow to like it," and that never happened. Um, so, so yeah, I think it's a bit of a difficult question to answer distinctively because I don't think there's a real one answer for this.
Mm.
Mm.
For me, right? When I was thinking on this topic, I realized like like in a school environment, you're kind of given the curriculum as a student, right? You can see where you're being led to. So, what I realize in the way that I teach, I don't make the path completely
Mm.
known to my students that they're taking. Same like you said, they have a particular thing that they're trying to learn, right? And you don't want to deviate too much because it might, in my case, scare them off of the instrument because let's say I teach them towards the genre that they want to learn. Maybe let's say a bit of jazz guitar. Um, they just want to get as good as being a rhythm guitarist. Then I would teach them up to that point, but I do have a set curriculum for these things, and some of the things in there isn't particularly attractive. Nobody wants to go over
Mm.
chords all the time and go over their scales and learn how to use a mode efficiently. Like That's that does not sound
Yeah.
attractive, and when you see what that looks like on paper, it's like, oh no. So I try to hide it as much as I can, and incorporate it in a way that is like not as like intimidating.
Mm.
Which, um, yeah, it is more
Yeah.
difficult in a sense in a
Mm.
classroom because
Yeah.
as I know
Yes.
where you're thinking of, and I've kind of approached it very much the same way when I worked with. I don't do it these days, but because I've become properly like freelance now. But
Mm.
back in my teaching days, I also used to approach it very sensitively and kind of speak a lot about, or try and leave conversation open as well with students,
Yes.
because there's also
Mm.
certain beliefs they've kind of grown up in as well. I know particularly in art, one of the questions the discussions I like to used to have, and I used to say to the students, listen, you can be brutally honest about this. Um,
Mm.
do you feel that art and music and this and that is actually important? Because I know, like coming from a music side, music teachers like to sell music in various
Yeah.
different ways.
That's that.
Mm.
Oh wow, you threw like the most loaded question in music history. Bro.
But it's
Um.
for me,
Yeah.
it's really dependent on the person, because not every person is going to become a musician. Obviously, music is in a lot of things. Art is in a lot of things, but for some people, it's really just not important. And you've got to respect that. The same way
It's
for me, geography, I'm like, maybe there's some aspects of it that I'll include in my life. The same way, some people, although they're not interested in music, they'll still watch movies with music in it and stuff like that.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think sometimes people really try to push music onto people, and you've got to
yeah, that
sometimes
takes away.
respect that. This, maybe this person will at in time come to it, but you really can't force everyone.
Mm, that's exactly what
Yeah.
I was thinking, Mads. You can't force it.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
when
I
I'm
was gonna
hanging
say
out.
that.
Go ahead them.
Carry on.
When I'm hanging out with some people and somewhere along the line I find out that they have history with music. They're like, oh yeah, I can play the violin, or oh yeah, I used to sing a lot. And then I'd ask them about their history, like what have they done, what do they like to sing, and they're like, no, like I don't do that anymore. And it's always like sad when I hear that, and they say no, they were just taught in school this thing. Now it's just now my instrument is just gathering dust there one side, or like I just sing at my when I really have to, and that's usually when people push me to do it. Like those type of stories make me sad, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maybe those people would have been happy not learning the arts.
Yeah,
Mm.
look, as I said, it's a very individual thing, but I also think maybe the case is, and this is why I tend to like uh, putting that question when I used to teach with classrooms. Maybe it's just that they don't understand. They don't understand what is the importance of art or music or what it may be. Um, because when we actually speak in depth with the discussion, I kind of mentioned from my side different things that the arts actually leads into, and I speak about like
Mm.
things. So as an example is I'll mention architecture. Architecture stems from learning art, and
Mm-hmm.
everything that is around you has been built because of architecture.
Yes.
Mm.
So sometimes people don't realize the importance, or they don't understand certain aspects, and
Mm-hmm.
that is actually some of the reason we lose a lot of students, because those
Hmm.
people, do you know how many times I've come across person that later on in their life this person has said, oh, I did piano, or I did this and this instrument early on in life, but I never continued with it, and I wish I did.
I've met some like those too.
Mm,
Yeah. So I think those conversations are important for kids to have.
Mm,
mm,
Like in the way that you said that, Madge, you made me think of a student now. Like much older, like I think they were in their late 40s, came to me, said, in my life, I at least want to be able to play my favorite song before I pass away, and I want to play it for everybody. And I'm like, you're only in your like assuming 40s, and he's like, no, I have to do this. And it made me
mm,
wonder why I didn't learn it at early age. And that's not to say that everybody should be learning at early age, and that's where yours ties in. Like they don't realize the importance until like it reaches that
mm,
point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
yeah.
You.
Um, I would say from me, on this particular question, so I think um, I had came across these students that just approached me like, but sir, um, why do you think it's gonna be important for us to like learn all these things? And I try to give them the best answer as I can as a teacher. I'm like, okay, I know that music might not be as important for you when you get to the next grade. When you're faced with a school that doesn't have subjects that are of the arts in the FET band, so like from grade 10 to matric. So when they don't have teachers for that specific subject, and then I think I mentioned that earlier that you get to schools that teaching teaching creative arts or teaching any subject that are of the arts is very scarce to get in certain schools, especially township schools, when from grade 8 to grade 9 they were forced to do creative arts to whatever two art forms that they're in. And as soon as they get to grade 10, those certain subjects don't exist in the FET band, and they'll keep asking, and then those later like why we were made to do these to do this specific subject in the first place, knowing that we're not gonna do it when we get to grade 10, 11, or grade 12. And I kind of find it concerning as an individual myself, and also as a teacher. It's like certain school principals will want them to participate in extracurriculars like join a choir, be in the band, uh, be in the dance crew, join the drama club, and then with there's no specific subjects to support those extracurriculars they're doing.
Mm.
It's it's a difficult aspect, eh?
Yeah.
Because because if you look at this question of why is music or art or drama, why is it important? I would say us as teachers and artists, it is, and this is maybe a little bit of a warning um,
Mm,
to new teachers. It is the most difficult question to get
yeah.
because there's two reasons behind it. Is one, it is soul searching. You really got
Oh
to
yeah.
search your
Oh
soul
yeah.
Yes,
for
yes.
an answer for yourself, and secondly, it is actually a the answer can absolutely lose that student for you.
Mm,
Um, and I've had this question many times, and I don't know. I think I answered it in a very lengthy way because there's no one answer for this. But I think it's
Mm.
as I mentioned before, it's important to point out the possibilities, um, and what music is to a society, and what music is to the human person. I think one thing that I really like to touch on is the emotional communication.
Oh, yes.
Music for me
Mm.
is very much this language that transcends words.
Mm.
It conveys feelings from people that words just can't seem to convey, and it transcends time and space. And I think it's a lot of people don't. A lot of people shy away from classical music, but this is one of the primary things of classical music. Is this is what it's based around. A lot of what you read of a
Mm.
composer paints out all of the experiences and feelings that that person went through during that time. And it is this incredible emotional journey. So maybe maybe music is not something that is important for a certain student going forward career wise, but there may be something in music that you will feel that you will never get to experience in anything else. I remember there was a question I asked myself, and this was one of the soul searching questions that is related to this.
Mm.
And it was, um, would it have been, because I was kind of looking at how popular music is going, and obviously skilled musicians aren't getting as much recognition. So I was thinking to myself, would it have been better for me to have not learned music and just be ignorant and enjoy the pop music and stuff? Or
Yeah.
is it better for me to have learned the music and experienced this? And I thought to myself a bit, and I thought about the feelings that music has for me. And the one thing I thought of was sitting and spending time learning a piece of music or creating a piece of music, and then getting to the final phase where I actually play it, either for myself or other people. There is nothing in my
Mm.
life that has come close to that feeling. And maybe that feeling is not for everyone, but I feel that is one of the experiences everyone at some point should feel. Um, some either in listening to music or creating music or something, there is something emotional that can change your life. The way you feel about music, the way you feel about art, and everything like that. So yeah, for me, that is my most honest answer to that question.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, that was very well said, Mads. Like, that hit different.
Thank you very much.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. I think this question is a bit of a hot seat. Are you guys ready to move on to the
Yeah,
next one?
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
All right. We on to our last point here. So number 6. And this one is it's obviously this was actually very personal to each of us. So problems you've faced,
Mm.
triumphs, and how your teaching experience has changed. So I'll start things off with this. So I'll just kind of repeat the one thing. So a problem for me, as I mentioned earlier, was that I was focused very much on performance, and I didn't put much effort into um, teaching too much. And
Mm.
obviously that eventually changed as I actually realized the importance of music teaching. But there's other issues, and it stems to a lot of what we've said and covered. I mean, I've had interactions with students that sometimes I'm not proud of the way I've dealt with situations, And then there's been
Mm.
certain situations where problems have popped up, either in the classroom or with students, and then I'm actually quite happy with how I've dealt with it. And everyone is going to face these things. So at some stage, you're gonna have failures. You're gonna have points where you're gonna have problems that you're not gonna have an answer to or be able to fix it in there. And hopefully, some of us can give you a little bit of information around this. So I'll give an example. There was a there was a student. So kind of stemming back to what we were talking about, the um, what is the importance of art and whatnot. So a question where a
Mm.
student just did not see the importance of art and whatnot. Um, and the way I dealt with it was, that was actually where I came up with a system of um, speaking to students and speaking about what is art, what is music, and so on. And I was very happy because although it was a bit of a turnaround question for the lesson of sir, why is art important? Why do I need this? Um, Actually speaking properly to the class and honestly allowed a lot of the students, including the student that asked it, even though you could see he was trying to challenge the whole idea. He didn't want to be in the class and whatnot. Um, Actually speaking to him and being honest really changed his mindset. He went from not working at all because he didn't care about art, but actually respecting, even though he didn't see art as important for himself, he understood that for some people it's important. And there are certain things that art um, is important to in the world, and music and so on. And his attitude completely changed. So for me, that's one of the problems I've faced, and I've had a bit of a triumph. Um, I've had situations where, so this is an example of a problem I've faced, and I've not so much triumphed. And I've learned to be strict on myself, where I've kind of set things that I want to do, and I haven't been quite consistent with. So very early in my lesson times, where in my teaching times, where I haven't followed through with certain lessons, and I've had people, because of that, because I haven't been consistent with certain things, leave. Um,
Mm.
and that has been a bit of a sad thing for me. So, but I've learned from that. I learned it's important to set rules and boundaries for yourself, so that obviously you can be in a safe place, but you're working with other people as well. You're working with students. You're working with young people that may have parents that have things that they want their student to experience. And if you don't take into consideration that, or if you're not consistent in what you need to do, what you're responsible for doing, it can set a bad name for you, and it can you can lose that student. And it's such a
Mm.
sad point to me, because I always think back to those students that I've lost, and I think, man, I wish I was better. I wish I didn't have such an ignorant mindset in the beginning, wanting to just focus so much on performance, and I didn't pay as much attention, because that's a student lost. And I don't know if they've ever found a teacher that could have helped them. So yeah, there's
Mm.
regrets that you'll sometimes have to live with. And maybe through stuff like this, doing podcasts, because this is my hope, doing a podcast like this, asking tough questions like this. I'm hoping that it gives some people insight. So if
Mm.
you're starting to be a teacher, um, maybe open your mind a little bit, so that you can avoid some of the sad experiences that some of us may have gone through. So yeah, so those are the problems I face. Those are some of the triumphs and failures that I've had, and yeah, the that is how it's kind of changed my experience within teaching. Um, I'm much more passionate about my music, and I'm much more focused on providing or
Mm.
essentially using a philosophy um, to get that long-term goal, and shaping things in a way that the student benefits as well. So yeah, that's from my side. Who wants
Mm.
to Who wants to go next? I
I
think
think I
Cloud.
can go next.
All right, because I think Cloud X is away for a bit.
No, I just got back.
Oh, you just got back. Okay.
Just
Yeah.
got back now. Okay. Think the problems I faced, and like I mentioned earlier, well, what you mentioned, Mads, earlier in the podcast, that being thrown in the deep end kind of situation. So that's like one of my problems. And when you are appointed as a teacher in the class for certain classes in a specific subject, and usually it's like they don't have any knowledge like what to do with the kids in the subject. And when you have to ask them for any sort of guidance, like is there a certain book you're using, or it's just like, well, we don't know, just find a book you can just teach them and then go for it. So it was that sort of situation, trying to find specific syllabus they used in that particular school, and then you just and then you just it's like go on your own way as a music teacher. Just try and find books relevant to the current education department's syllabus, which they had to follow certain topics, and then on those, what was called the ATP, annual teaching plan. So it's almost like mapped out. It was like a guideline what you have to teach to students, and I find that was also another problem. I find that certain things they suggest, it's kind of like limited to knowing knowing or expending more knowledge to music. Say for instance you have to teach them time signatures, so they'll tell you to teach these certain key signatures. They have to remember, like C major, F major, G major. That's it. And then compared to the book you're using, that it maps out every single key signature that they have to remember, and knowing that they're like the basic ones, that you're getting the atonal key signatures, like C major, and then you're getting the other key signatures that they have either seven sharps or seven flats that they have to remember. But then what to the department suggest, like teach them these key signatures. And I was like, I have to go on my way as a teacher. Like they have to learn all of this, so that I had to give them like a variety of questions when it comes to exams or tests. And when and on another school that I taught, so I had been skilled with art. I did art as a high school subject. No, I'm not I don't have a proper qualification for it though, but I do have knowledge to it. So I taught music and art, and then certain, like similar situation, being thrown in the deep end, and then just had to like fend for yourself as a teacher, and then seeing that if you have in some inkling way that you've inspired like a number of students, are they enjoying the subject? And also it was based on the environment that I was in. Like, would they able to get this in this sort of school? And there was one time I went to um a workshop for teachers teaching creative arts. Um and then I sort of like raised the questions like, what do you do when you're in the school that hasn't had any proper teaching or have a proper teacher in this specific subject, and you as a teacher, you're teaching them from scratch, which is now another problem. Usually principals will just assign teachers, any teacher, no, whether they qualified or not qualified, in most cases just not qualified, then just assign them to this specific subject of the arts. And you the response from students when you ask them like, what did you learn from the previous year, they will honestly tell me and say, we didn't do anything, we didn't have a proper teacher, they're just going to send us to the field to just go and dance and we just get free marks. And kind of looked at it, no, this is really a problem. And when you get to the point of teaching the subjects, like, it's now a bit of a tricky and rocky situation because now they've never had any proper formal teaching in the subject. So now I'm thinking like, what are you gonna do as a teacher? So now you try your best ability to push these kids to get to the point now that they understand the content, they understand the syllabus and the material being handed to them. And I had like a few triumphs here and there, and then also like learning from my mistakes and how I approach students in my teaching methods. And it's always like a learning curve every time I teach. So to that question, think, yeah, this is like my problems and triumphs, and yeah.
All right, all right. Has any of those experience particularly shaped um, or changed how you teach?
Yeah, in some way now I was in like in a different setting now where I think I had like proper guidance that I wasn't like thrown in the deep end. Even if like looking back to the times that was thrown in the deep end, that I had to look at my teaching approach. Like, did I approach it well? Am I doing things right? It's almost like you're second guessing. And in some way, personally as a teacher, it did shape me on my teaching approach. And I do get some feedback to some of the past students that I've taught, saying like, thank you, sir, for finding my passion through music. Like, you're the reason that I'm getting to matric and finding my passion for music. So they're not actually having music as a subject when they just have somehow they have got inspired in getting into music.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim. Cloudex?
Mm.
Yeah, I think like as a teacher, right? The biggest problem I faced in my journey was finance, without a doubt. Money was a big issue because I came from an impoverished background. So to be a teacher in itself doesn't cost you anything. But to want to help everybody with teaching does, because you need the resources and you need to meet them where they're at. So my starting years as a teacher were very difficult because financially I couldn't afford extra instruments to teach somebody. So I'd like share my singular guitar that I had with them, or like if I had to like go somewhere, there was always the odds that I could get robbed of my equipment. I didn't own a vehicle. At that time, Uber wasn't
Mm.
even a thing. So those were very difficult times for me, and I it was problematic as a teacher as well because they just
Mm.
expected to work out and they don't see the logistics in it. The students now. That was my biggest problem that I faced, finance. Um, though now like it's much later now. I think it's 5 years or so later now. Like my life changed a lot, and I was able to overcome like these limitations. Like traveling is not an issue anymore. Um, my finance is in a much more stable position where I can support everybody that I
Mm.
want to, and I can go out and meet people where they're at. Like I can go towards my accessibility goals, and that's great. It's a
Mm.
massive triumph for me. Like I know these things shouldn't be limiting factors, but it is realities that we need to face. We live in a life that's imperfect, and we need to be realistic about how we deal with it. And I've been lucky to overcome it. And that's great. Like I'm happy to be teaching now as much as I want to.
All right.
Mm.
Nice, nice.
Nice.
Okay, so guys, we have reached the end. So if any audience members now want to ask any questions, you can ask them now. It's kind of a bit of a free point for us. So if you guys want to, um, I know Cloudex, you were asking for when we would be free from the constraints of the topics. We are
Yes,
now at that point. I
I'm
just want to
so rebellious.
quickly
Yeah.
I just want to quickly jump back because Magical Bean shared one of our answers for our midway question. So I'll just add that in quickly before we go into it. So that is for the memorable teacher. So my answer for the audience question, most memorable teachers for me were the English and eco teachers who only put through half the detentions I was given. So I wouldn't have to go to detention often. And the Afrikaans teacher who yelled at me in front of the whole class that I was lying about my stepdad's funeral because another girl had to go to a funeral on the same day. Wow, that
Wow.
last one was a bit intense. Yes.
Wow.
Phew.
Can you make that an accusation?
Mm.
Ooh, yeah.
Mm.
Alrighty, guys. Or CloudX, what do you have in your mind?
So it's from the philosophy perspective, right? Like us, we are teachers, right? We've been teaching, we've had our experiences with all these students, but in reality, right, all of us, we individuals as well, and musicians, artists, if you will. Like we also look at the craft, we practice it and we perform because like I'm assuming like that's what we do. And I wanted to know from you guys, like as an artist, as somebody that practiced the art, like what's your philosophy on approaching it? Like like I can start when I'm taking on a guitar piece, like in the back of my mind, I don't know. It's like I think I'm gonna suck at this so bad. It's gonna be difficult because I have a tendency to bite off more than what I can chew. But somewhere in my head, the belief came from, and probably turned into philosophy now, that nothing's perfect, and practice doesn't necessarily make it perfect, but you can get better. And the constant repetition of that leads to a better performance. Like, how do you guys like approach music? Like, I guess that's more my question from more less a teacher perspective, but as you guys being artists.
All right, I'll start with this one because I really like this question.
Mm.
Um, I think my answer has changed through the years, but where I currently am, because I tend to take on very difficult pieces as well. I like my difficult pieces. Um, and at some point, I came to the view that actually this stems from something I figured when I was younger. Nothing is actually too difficult. You either need
Right?
you either need a little bit
Eh?
more knowledge that you need to cover something, or you need a little bit more time to cover something.
Mm.
So when
It's
Mm.
like you it just sounds impossible. It doesn't mean it is.
yeah, so I find because there's some pieces that I've started with. I remember there was one Rachmaninoff etude that I started, and it I I can honestly say it's one of the most difficult pieces I've tried to tackle because I sat for about 3 hours trying to figure out how to approach the first bar, and I couldn't for ages. I couldn't figure out what to do, and eventually
Mm.
certain things started sticking out to me, and sometimes you need to just spend time figuring out what the heck is happening. Um, a lot of people think, oh no, this is too difficult, and then they kind of move away or something, and
Mm.
it's obviously
Mm.
dependent on the person, but yeah, sometimes there's students that want to tackle pieces and they're like, oh no, maybe it's not time yet. And look, if you try something and maybe you don't 100% succeed at that time, it is 100% fine. I've gone back to,
Mm.
because we change as musicians, and we learn new things. Um, so I've gone back to pieces that I've failed at in the past, and I've succeeded at them now, or there's pieces that I've learned in the past and I play them
Mm.
now and I play them completely different. So
Okay.
there's no such thing as a perfect
Mm.
way to play something.
Mm.
But I think stemming more on the philosophy of performance, kind of, for me, a piece of music in the classical world, because I spoke about
Mm.
classical music being very much almost like a historical mapping of emotions and experiences. To me, when I play a piece of music, it's it ends up being a conversation between me and that composer. That is what it's
Oh,
for me.
that's a very beautiful way to put it,
Mm.
Mads.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's my answer. I think.
Mm.
Did I answer your question
Yes, you
nicely?
did.
Okay. All right. All
Like,
right.
it's about the approaches like that I wanted to hear because I don't want to say I've been segregated, but in the guitar world, especially in South Africa, there's a very limited amount of people at a certain level of playing, right? And they kind of put you in this box. No, you're too good to play with us and stuff. And I've always wondered, like,
Mm.
okay, what is actually different between me and you? And like, why do you feel like somebody needs to be of equal skill? Because that's not the case, right?
Wait,
Like, I
you've really
mean,
Mm.
had that where
yes,
people.
I've had that
Wow.
where people don't want to play with me. It's odd. Like, I've also had people tell me that, no, why aren't you playing the instrument that you're good at? Um, which is to say, I would opt in to rather play bass than guitar. Like I feel a strong
Mm,
intimidation from other people, or they feel intimidation from me. Like when I perform, and yeah, just to hear like other people have similar views is nice. Like I practice, I try hard to get to sounding good, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
mm,
it should just be that way, not what I ego the person you're performing with, how that person's playing makes me feel. It shouldn't be a factor. It's about what we're presenting to the listener, right?
mm,
yeah.
Mm.
Look, I'm not sure 100% the situation, but in a sense, I've had some people not 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 want to play with me, but be hesitant to play with me because of my skill. And honestly, sometimes I just say, look, I'm not hoping for anything from your side. I really just want to
Yeah, you
have
just
fun
want to
with you
play the
guys.
music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
mm.
Because they say to me, oh, it's not like notation music or anything like that. And I'm like, I'm fine,
Eh,
guys.
Yeah,
I
let's jam.
yeah.
Let's have some fun.
Because the Christmas when I did the Christmas concert music in December, I mean there's normally Christmas shows for us as musicians. They're some of the most common things, but the group that I joined, um, yeah, so they kind of knew my background because someone had suggested me for the gig, and they wanted me to take the lead, and I said, listen, guys, you've been playing this music. Because I joined kind of last minute. They lost someone, and I joined in. I said, you guys have more of a point lead, and I really don't mind just taking the chords and creating atmosphere around it. So I think I did like string sounds in the background, and synth sounds on the keyboard, and they really enjoyed it. Having someone actually
Mm.
just take point and me take
Mm.
a back step, and I enjoyed myself, and yeah, I think they realized afterwards. I was like, ah, no, it's fine. Yeah. Alrighty.
um, uh, as as for me, well, okay. When facing music, I think the first time I faced a piece of music in front of me was in grade 8, and I did not have any knowledge of what the hell am I reading. But but soon as you get, I was in a junior choir in high school in grade 8, and I sang second soprano. So whenever the teacher has to like play notes to us, and soon as I picked up what she played and I was able to like guide my way to find that melody line for soprano too, until I get it right. And I didn't even realize that I was gonna pick up just like that. And usually for a normal person who's trying to like read for the first time, it's gonna like take them time, so they have to like practice, try to like read music and sing. But then it was a different case for me and how I approached music. It started from just like listening to a tune played from the piano, and then having that little bit of knowledge of grade 1 music theory, which sort of guided my way to being this good with music theory. And then I from there on, and then I started like learning music. learning music and reading music, though just by like using my brain. And think when I thought it was like a difficult song to learn, so it was another choir song. It's written by a Finnish composer. So it was more like trying to understand would I able to pick up the um, tempo of the song, and in my mind I was like, I don't think I'm gonna get this tempo right. But
Mm.
but then soon as you're done rehearsing it many times, and then all of a sudden now you are doing that song on a fast tempo, and then I getting a feedback from one of my high school teachers, my art teacher, and I was like I don't get you. You do things so slow. How is it that you can sing so fast? And now I'm processing with her comment. It's like, should I be insulted or should I be complimented? Because now there's always that sort of misconception as a person with ADD or ADHD that we're just slow thinkers and we're dumb. And we're all different people, and knowing how cognitive um, cognitive thinking works. So I was different from my other peers that I would take time to sort of process things, but then I would get it eventually with the help of music. So yeah, and as what um, Cloudx mentioned, oh wait, no, not Cloud. When Mads mentioned, it's all about like having that personal relationship with the composer or the songwriter of the song, and then you have to understand where's the story coming from. I think that's how I sort of conveyed songs throughout when doing solo singing, singing jazz, singing pop, singing choral music, and understanding the emotion on each song. And that's how I sort of like got good with music. Or that's how I sort of found my way of approaching music, and then trying to see if I can instill that similar method to anyone I teach.
All right, all right. So we do have two questions here.
Mm.
Um, they, in a way, they're linked. So I'll start by answering this. But it's are there any specific musicians that you'd love to watch perform in real life? And if you could meet someone who truly inspired you, whether alive or dead, who would it be? Um, hmm. Are there any specific musicians that I'd like to watch perform in real life? I think that one is maybe maybe Martha Argerich. She's a very interesting pianist for me, and she's from the old era of pianists, and is still currently one of the best pianists today. Funny enough, it's really interesting because you think with old age comes less performance, and in most cases it is so. You lose a lot of facility, but Martha Argerich, as old as she is now, you listen to her play some pieces that she played in the younger days, and she plays them faster, and you think, how the heck? So yeah, it's my answer for that one. And then the second one, also, if you could meet someone who truly inspired you, whether alive or dead, who would it be? Um, I would actually say, what is her name again? N- Nadia Boulanger. So Nadia Boulanger
Mm.
was the piano teacher in the 1900s who very much shaped the world of classical music in a sense. A lot of the great musicians were at some point taught by her. And there was a musician that I really wanted to sit down and chat to because um, we started talking a bit about his music and so on. And I actually discovered that he was a student of her, and it's one of the big South African composers, Peter Klatzer, was actually a student of hers. Quincy Jones was
Oh.
also a student of Nadia Boulanger, and then some of the greats that you can think of. So Leonard Bernstein, who's the conductor for many of the great performances in the classical world, as well as the writer of West Side Story, was also a student of her. Just to kind of give you perspective of who she kind of is. He actually said in his older days when he sat down and spoke to her, she still made him feel, even with all his achievements and everything he's learned, she made him feel like he's still a child learning when he
Mm.
sat with her. So that would have been someone interesting to be able to meet if she was still alive. Yeah.
Mm.
Do you guys have any answers to those? Are there any specific musicians that you love to watch perform in real life, or if you could meet someone that truly inspired you, whether alive or dead?
Mm.
Um, so there's a music group I would love to see perform IRL. Um, that would be Zuta Mayo. And the reason is they they're not the common type of pop music, and the group of artists that they put together are all so different, and yet the music they make is like wow. It's a different kind of energy that I don't really hear anywhere else. And if I could see how that is made like live, how they reproduce that same energy live, that would be a dream. Like wow, that'd be so nice.
Mm.
Um, and for could I meet someone that truly inspired me, live or dead? That would be Michael Jackson.
All right.
If there was ever anybody that performed with the most emotion, that was the most seen and gave the most, it would be that guy. I
Mm.
would love to meet Michael Jackson.
Nice. I was actually speaking to someone yesterday when I was working about Michael Jackson because I really like his early music that he wrote.
Yeah.
Funny enough,
Mm.
my favorite song from Michael Jackson is an early song that is lesser known that he wrote. I think it was one of his first songs that he had finished. Um,
Is it from
it's
Off the
it's
Wall?
Ben.
Ben. Mm.
Yeah, so he had like a pet mouse, I think,
Mm.
and he named
Mm.
it Ben, and he wrote a song about Ben, and it's a beautiful piece. So
Mm.
something worth listening to.
Dun 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 dun.
Yes, that's it. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
Lambo
I
knows
know
that
it.
song. Yeah. Tim, do you need me
Mm.
to read
Yeah.
the questions again, or you got it?
No, no, no. I understand. I heard the wanted to say so. So it's like three specific people. Uh, two I wish to see perform. One's alive and one's dead. Actually, um, one one is Adele, cause okay, I know this is kind of a cheesy answer. Like Adele, so is the sort of. in a way inspired me to like perform one of her songs, and I did one of her songs for my matric exam, which in some way gained 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 a lot of marks when it came to like the matric moderation. So I was picked for highest, and I practiced it so well, like one after school, and then the music teacher asked me if I can do that song for my exam. I was like, okay. So I was working with another choir classmate. He was good with the piano, so we've just been like working on on the song many times until we got it right. And the other where I wish to see perform was Frank Sinatra, because in inspiration of jazz music, and like I wish to see him perform, and the way he just like conveyed the jazz music, and it was really amazing. That's why I sort of sang one of her songs in previous graded exams, in conveying jazz music, and which also kind of got me to be in touch with jazz music and jazz singing. And the person I that inspired me, and that's for choir conducting, is Eric Whitaker. So how how he inspired me in choral conducting is just the way he composes music with with the clusters, and like he sort of almost like he did some sort of the reinventing of of choral composing by adding clusters and all that. And one of his compositions that I came across was a song called Lux Orumque, and that's I think that was the only piece of music that I owned until now. We sort of now I was trying to learn one of his other compositions from just like listening to the tracks from other choirs perform, and it is not that it's not that easy trying to like get each and every note, because I'm trying to figuring out notes as a person with perfect pitch. It was more like a slow process, but I had to enjoy listening to his music very much, and um, watching him conduct and then doing his choral projects, which was the virtual choir project, which started way back in 2010 from from his first project, which was, well, ultimately it was Lux Orumque, but I never joined. And then and then I suddenly joined one of his projects in 2013, which was for Virtual Choir 4, which he brought now a new, sort of like a new spectrum to choral music, mixing choral music with, I'll say, techno music. So like this was a different approach. I was like, okay, let me just go for it. And then suddenly I joined that project, and then I sort of returned to one of his projects, which happened during the pandemic, which he sort of wrote in the time of the pandemic, that we're living separately, but then we what we still sing as one. The song was called "Sing Gently." So so surprisingly, um, got approached to one I think is one of his and emailed me like, "Do you want your video to be featured in the final video of the virtual choir project?" I was like, "Yes, definitely." And then they also wanted a quote about how Eric Whitaker's music and the project had benefited me in my life. So I first wrote it in English, and then they asked me like, would it be nice if you just like wrote the quote in your home language, which was Zulu? And I was like, oh, okay, that's also nice. So it's supposed to be featured in one of his books, describing about the virtual project starting from 2010 up to 2020, which was the pandemic. I think they was celebrating 10 years of virtual choir projects. So yeah, I think that's the person that sort of inspired me.
Alrighty. Thank you so much for the questions. And thank you for the answers, guys.
Mm.
Um, is there anything that you guys want to maybe touch on?
Mm.
Or have we reached the end of our program?
Mm.
Now I'm trying to think. There was something I wanted to touch earlier on. Now I can't remember. Um, I think it will come back to me.
Mm. No, I can't. I can't think up stuff. I think we good to end.
All right.
Mm,
Okay, thank you so much for joining me, CloudX722
Mm.
and Tim Music. It has been an absolute
thank
joy
you.
chatting to you guys. And I'm really happy being back in the whole podcasting. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, in a way, this is one of the whole international artistic development and music mafia thing. Is a way for inclusivity as well. Um,
Mm,
yeah. I like having this. It's a free way for people to just kind of listen in and hear certain ideas. But it also links to us as well. CloudX is one of the teachers in international artistic development as well as Tim Music. So if you want to check them out, you can check our Discord. So it's discord.me /I -A -D if you want to check us out. So please also check out CloudX722. He is a streamer and he's got music and gaming stuff that he sometimes does. And Tim, I think you'll find all the information in the Discord as well. And you can also chat to them if you'd like to drop a message on Twitch to these guys if you'd like more information from them. Because there's, as you heard, there's lots of insight into many things. Thank you so much, guys. It has really been a pleasure.
mm.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
was really
yeah. Thank
good.
you for having us. Yeah.
All right.